Hello and welcome to Indus Special. I'm Meshal Malik. On tonight's show, we discuss the latest report by the World Health Organization that states that women outlive men all across the world, including both in developing and developed countries. We not only explore the biological factors that cause this, but also various attitudes which cause the span of life being cut short for men. Later on, we also discuss how parenting has changed over the decades and whether parents believe they have finally found a formula to raising the perfect child. But first, let's begin with why women outlive men. To discuss this issue and this topic today, we are joined by Mr. Veshal Shah, who is an anthropologist joining us from Mumbai. We're also joined by Mr. Amit Bhatt, who is the Director of Urban Transport, joining us from Delhi. Thank you all for joining us today. Mr. Veshal, when we're talking about life expectancy rates, and as the doctor here was mentioning, that there are various stresses that men face compared to women, and that's why their life expectancy might be low. But what other reasons do you think, sociological reasons, contribute towards this?
So greetings, everyone. And in my opinion, what the doctor is suggesting is the lifestyle of a person is not going to determine your age. It is just your healthiness. The fact of the question is, I have simple question: why did Mother Nature, award the reproduction department to women? That's because they are stronger, period. All the other factors hold only so much value. Social, economical, your life, your social life, your children, your family is only your lifestyle. But that is not going to improve the amount you live. Just because you have a perfect life doesn't mean you're going to live longer.
So, Mr. Veshal, something here that the report highlighted was that men are less likely than women to seek out medical help, especially when it comes to cases such as HIV and tuberculosis. They are more likely to prevent themselves from going out and seeking medical help. And that is seen to be one of the lead causes for why men seem to live.
I have a little knowledge about this, and that is because they are afraid to get exposed. As soon as I will go to a doctor, and if I have cancer, I'm going to be harassed for smoking. Or if I have HIV, I'm going to be harassed by this. So it's nothing else but social reason. Men are scared too, but they rather die than expose their bad news. They just, like she said, like the doctor said, they do not have the guts to be open and admit they have a problem.
Yeah.
They don't even ask for directions. Forget a disease. Men will not even ask for directions. So, that's how they are. I don't think that is affecting their age expectancy.
So you're saying that's how they are. Are you saying that that's how men are inherently built, or that's how they have been socialized into being?
Yes, no, not socialized. It's 4.4 billion years. Every man has been the same way. Every war, if you see the number of men that have died through the wars, I think there should be no men left. But why is it that even today at 7.5 billion, there's only 5 more men, means 5% more of men to women, because they're constantly being born. Only the strength to live longer lies with the women.
Yeah.
Men are always going to be the even number, but that's how it is.
But Mr. Veshal, could you tell us a little more about the stigmas that are attached to men when they want to seek out help? There are certain notions attached to masculinity which prevent men from going and seeking out help.
Yeah. So figured out to form forums of very influential people. Like YPOs, EOs, WPOs, XYZ, I don't want to name things, but that is where they are under oath, and 10 of them, 20 of them get together and decide to discuss each other's secrets and seek help only from within those 10 people. I will tell you a secret if you tell me a secret. That's how men are, period. They don't want to go around trusting, or they will tell a complete stranger. And if I'm allowed to say this, men go out, travel, seek talking to a stranger in a strip club because they want to talk to somebody. So that's the answer to your question. They're scared. They want to talk, but they don't want to trust people.
So don't you think this needs to change when it is causing for their life expectancy to decrease, when not seeking out help is actually life-threatening in this situation?
And the answer to that is they rather die than show themselves weak. I don't want to tell you I have a headache. I'm going to live with it, but tell you I'm weak. I don't want to be looked upon as a weak guy. I mean, simple as that.
Okay, so
that's my opinion. I
yeah.
could be wrong. That's my opinion.
No, you're entitled to your opinion there, and you're asserting that masculinity here is preventing men from seeking out basic help. Mr. Amit Bhatt, something that I'd like to ask you is in relation to one of the leading non-biological causes that was highlighted in this World Health Organization report, which was road accidents. Road accidents are considered to be the #1 cause of death amongst those aged 15 to 29 years of age. But it is also that men are 3 times more likely to die in these accidents as opposed to women. Why do you think that is so?
So there is a very simple reason to this. For example, if you look at the workforce participation ratio in some of the developing countries. The workforce participation ratio is very less for women. So for example, let's say take in India, so about 30% women participate in workforce as compared to a size of 100. So for every 100 men, we will have 30 women participating as a workforce. Now, the reason, so what impact is that since you have 3 times more men participating in a workforce, they are 3 times more exposed to traffic hazards. And therefore, you see more injuries happening to men in terms of traffic. It's nothing to do with any other reason, just because they are more exposed to traffic.
Yeah.
Now, the point is, as we move forward, we will see more and more women participating in the workforce. Now, will that mean more and more women succumbing to injuries? Yes, but that is not what we should anticipate and expect. We need to make sure how we can bring down these injuries and fatalities in our cities, in our countries, in a drastic manner.
What needs to be done to bring down those numbers of injuries? And I'm not just specifically talking about the developed world here. I'm also talking about the global scenario, because this report highlighted the fact that road accidents are an issue all across the world, even in more developed countries where we would assume that female work participation ratios are much higher.
Exactly. So the point is we are looking at about 1.35 million lives lost every year due to road traffic injuries. And I think we have to tackle this at a multiple fronts, because on one side, we have to create safe and inclusive infrastructure so that it facilitates movement of men and material. We also need to make sure that we have good and safe vehicles, as well as people who are trained to use this infrastructure in a vehicle in a right manner. So we have to work on multiple fronts, but again, it's a 1.3 million lives lost every year. Is a huge number, and that we need to work upon.
And what about this age group, 50 to 29 years of age? Is it true that young drivers are more reckless? And also the thing, and is this just a stereotype that men, young boys, are more likely to be involved in reckless driving than women? Or is this in fact the case, which might lead to greater causes of deaths amongst men?
So I don't think we'll have very strong empirical data to prove this case. The reason I said earlier is that because there are more men on road, therefore we see a lot of fatalities with men. But the point is that irrespective of whether it's men or women who are driving, road traffic injuries, we should actually get away from this notion of calling them an accident, because these are not accidents. These are all lives which are lost, which are preventable. We have seen great examples from Sweden, which started 3 decades back, called Vision Zero concept. When they worked on multiple fronts, both of safe vehicles, safe infrastructure, and safe users, they have seen phenomenal drop in fatalities. So we have to work on a systematic manner. Only then we will get these reductions.
Yeah. And definitely there is something that needs to be done systematically in order to reduce something that is one of the top 9 leading causes of deaths in the world. Mr. Veshal, back to you. When we were talking about health and expression of women as compared to men in seeking out help, there is also, of course, empirical data that suggests that women are more likely to suffer from depression than men. But yet the suicide rates amongst men is higher all across the world. What can you tell us about that? What are the societal factors which lead to that?
What I have experienced personally, actually, I'm a counselor also. So women have the ability to communicate much better. Having said that, if if you do have a depression or something you're sad about, you are quickly going to communicate it, maybe to a profession or your friend or your mother or your daughter. So you have the ability to get it out of your system. You don't think twice, and that's the strength. You have the ability to get rid of the pain. You're built to sustain pain, but important pain. Not these things don't matter to them. I don't think they don't care if two people find out they're sad, and in exchange they're getting happiness. So I think they try to evaluate that, hey, if I tell you my problem, you're going to say something nice, and I'm going to feel nice about it. And because they're not looked down upon as weak, or men are supposed to be strong, they are not obliged to portray themselves as somebody Iron Man.
But here,
I think that's where it is.
Mr. Veshal, let me ask you this as well. You said that the women have the ability to be more expressive, but is it also because women feel a certain kind of pressure when it comes to taking care of their children? They have to be mentally in the right frame of mind, because we also hear about this argument
I would call that strength. They have the strength to make a decision to get rid of their troubles.
Definitely. But what are the sociological factors which have caused for women to think like as opposed to men? Can we just say that it's all inherent?
To raise their children, they have to make sure they can't get their husband upset or their other, better half upset about being sad or whatever, because men have only so much emotional intelligence or quotient. And after one point, he's not going to be able to entertain her depression. So she is figuring a way to make herself happy again, to make everyone around her happy. So she is very, very intelligent. I feel I have great respect for women and their strength. I mean, they have the ability to get rid of anything before men do. So they know everything. I mean, that's my opinion again. But
do you think, Mr. Veshal, in the decades we're seeing a change in the trends and the attitudes of how women address these issues and how men address these issues?
They have more options now, basically. So they have it used to happen earlier as well, I'm sure, but now they have more options. They have, internet. They have all kinds of things that help them make the decision. And definitely, the world has evolved. People have become more acceptable. There is no disparity between man and woman. Woman is supposed to feel everything a man does, but man is shy to say, I feel pain or whatever. But yes, things have changed. I agree.
And what other habits would you feel that cause men to die earlier? Because the report suggested that there are certain stereotypes that we assume, but they're in fact true, that men smoke more and that might lead to greater...
No. See, that's just lifestyle. That's not going to improve your age.
But all those lifestyle choices do have an impact on the health, no?
It is my opinion. I'm not a doctor, but it's my opinion.
Yeah. And we are hearing a lot about regarding universal health coverage and how if we improve health facilities, this might change. And we're also talking about how it will change the life expectancy for men and how it will change the life expectancy for females. Do you think if there are more available medical facilities, men will be more inclined to reach out?
No, that is completely corporate. That is being architected to make money by the corporates. I don't think you're feeding me more and more medication now to live. I mean, that's not going to happen. It can't happen. Okay, I may not get or catch a cold, but just because... No, I don't think, bottom line, you should not improve medical things. You should get rid of mosquitoes. I mean, Gates Foundation is re-engineering mosquitoes' DNA so that 3 years later, nobody's going to die of mosquitoes. There's more people dying of mosquito bites than car accidents. World Health Organization should think about that. And driving is going to come in its place. Cars are becoming more and more advanced. The car is going to bang each other in next 3 years. I don't think that's a, tension we have today. But no, the answer to your question is I don't think medical should take over mankind. Mankind should keep in control medical. That's how it should be. 7 billion people population is not because of medical. It's because of mankind. Yeah. Mother Nature has given enough to us.
Mr. Amit, I will ask the same point here. Since you deal with what is urban transportation and you must know what needs to be done with medical facilities, especially in the case of emergencies. Is your opinion the same, that increasing the number of medical facilities will not change the results?
Absolutely. And Michelle, to your first point, when you said one of the first reasons for this is the heart disease, which is very common in men. And if you look at deeper, you go deep into the root cause, you will realize that a lot of it is also have to do with the sedentary lifestyle. So earlier we were all walking, we were all cycling, we were using public transport, but now we are all shifting to this car-based culture. So if you look at WHO data, 20 minutes of physical activity a day brings down heart diseases by almost 75%. So if you encourage people to more walk, more cycle, more use public transport, on one side you are having sustainable transport in the city, but you're also impacting their health in a positive manner. So how we can focus towards more of this preventive healthcare, which is the need of the hour. And even if you look at some of the cities, Dr. Veshal is from Mumbai, car use in Mumbai is only 5%. 95% people in Mumbai are not using car. So how we can plan cities which are for all modes of transport and not only people who use car, in any case they are minority in our cities.
Yeah. And Mr. Amit Bhatt, what would you suggest in terms of designing urban planning that could be beneficial to the health of humans and how it could promote a healthy lifestyle? What needs to change on an urgent basis?
I think we have to go ahead with this notion for designing people in cars. Because if you look at the way, I mean, just yesterday, London started ultra low emission zone. And the impact is they want to decrease emission from transport sector by almost half in 2 years. So we have to design cities which encourage walking, which encourage cycle. We have to promote public transport. We have to have more electric vehicles which are zero tailpipe emission coming in our cities. Only then we can create healthy lifestyles.
Definitely.
Otherwise, we are just stuck in our cars, in our rooms, and we are seeing this. And one last point towards the end. Last month, we had a very strong research from China coming in, which is now blaming air pollution as one of the key reasons of rising diabetes. And diabetes is now coming big in our cities. So we have to design cities which are much more inclusive.
Yeah. Of course, air pollution, so many other factors, something we need to consider while designing our cities, especially while there is an imminent threat there. Thank you so much, Mr. Bhatt, for joining us and talking to us. We're going to take a short break. Don't go anywhere. Stay with us. Welcome back to Indus Special. Now, with the plethora of parenting books out there, research after research being dedicated to child rearing techniques, has the current generation of parents become obsessed to finding a formula on how to raise children? And if yes, how does that compare to parenting techniques decades ago? We discuss this with all our guests today. Joining us for this discussion is Ms. Ayesha Sheraz, who's a psychologist, joining us in the Lahore studios. We're also joined by Veshal Shah, who's an anthropologist, joining us from Mumbai. We're joined by Wajiha Faraz, who's a mother and a former Montessori teacher, joining us from Dubai, and Enakshi Ganguly, who's a child rights activist and a mother, the co-founder and advisor at the Center for Child Rights, joining us from Delhi. Thank you all for taking out the time and talking to us today. Ms. Wajiha, let me begin with you. In your experience as a teacher and what you have seen, how do you feel parenting techniques have changed over the years?
Hi, thank you for taking me on the show first. I had been a teacher around 7 years back, and even at that time, I noticed that there are two extremes. One are the parents who are totally aloof of what their kids are doing, and one are the parents who are overindulgent in their children's rearing and children's upbringing and children's education. So we need what are the techniques that worked with the children was that with the being a teacher myself, what I did was with the parents who were totally aloof with the children, I used to bring them up in a different way. Then the children who were whose parents were overly indulged in their children's upbringing and education, I actually had to ask the parents to just give their child a little bit space so that the children can actually show what they want to do, what they feel like doing, and what are their likes and dislikes. Because what I feel is that we don't treat children as humans. We just treat children as little babies, little children, without even thinking that these children will grow up one day and become individuals. And just like none of the two individuals are same, the children are not the same. So we can't apply the same technique and formula on the children of the same age.
Definitely. And Ms. Wajiha, you make a very interesting point here, and I'm going to take this question to Ms. Ayesha here in the studio. So it seems like what Ms. Wajiha was talking about was that parents need to understand the difference between nature and nurture, that you need to also include the fact that children have different personalities and they must be raised in different ways. Is that something you would agree with?
First of all, to begin with, I'm feeling privileged to talk about a very significant factor that should be discussed frequently on television. I feel parenting is one of the most difficult thing one should be considering. It's not an easy thing that we can talk about. There is a general rule that we can apply, and there's a general formula, or there's a specific formula that can be generalized to all the parents. However, Wajiha, absolutely, she pointed out right that there are basically some categories of parenting. That's for sure, that there is one form of parenting which is very indulgent form of parenting, which is what we scientifically called a permissive sort of a parenting. And then there is another one which is neglectful parenting, and then there are other two types of parenting, which is authoritarian, and then there are other and democratic form of parenting. If we talk about different form of parenting style so far that has been used or administered, or what I would call it, the children experience the form of parenting, they definitely have an impact on the overall development, for sure.
And Ms. Ayesha, let me ask you this. This might be a loaded question, but which parenting technique from the ones that you've mentioned do you feel is the best and the worst? Right.
Before we move on to that question, it's very important to mention, since now we are talking scientifically, research around the globe who are especially studying human development, they are looking at the various factors that help individual grow optimally, who can function to the best of their capabilities in their various forms of domains in their life. Talking about these researchers have also said, and they have assumed, that family, especially the parenting, is a very significant factor that affects child develop optimal functioning and certain competencies that will help them to grow.
You mentioned here that research suggests ways to achieve optimal results when it comes to parenting, and something that I will ask Ms. Enakshi here is, do you think back when your children were in the primary socialization ages, you subscribed to any one of these parenting techniques that Ms. Ayesha was mentioning? And do you think you also kept in mind the way to bring about an optimal result?
I wish I had. In fact, I remember that when my daughter was born, she's now going to be 32 this year, I'd bought a book called Dr. Spock, and that was very popular in our times. So we would read it cover to cover and look at it and say that this is how I must behave. But over the years, as I told my daughter very recently, that when you were a 1-year-old child, I was the mother of a 1-year-old for the first time. Now when you became 20 years old, I became a mother of a 20-year-old for the first time. So every time she learned how to be a child, I learned how to be a mother. So and my work with children over the years has taught me that there is really, despite all theories, everything goes to the wind when it comes to practice, because every child, as Ms. Wajiha said, is so different. And the challenges of our times keep changing every day. And therefore, the need to change our way of dealing with children also keeps changing. Definitely. Having said that, I remember a school principal once told me, and in a lighter vein, she said, if you were to cut your head and put it on a plate and give it to a child, the child might say you haven't cut it well. especially in this day of information technology, when your children often have more information than you have. How do you stay ahead, and how do you become yourself, make yourself relevant to your child is a big challenge.
So, Ms. Enakshi, something that I want to pick up on what you mentioned is that as times change, your parenting techniques have to change. And something that Ms. Ayesha here also talked about was those overindulgent parents who are constantly keeping an eye on their children. Can you tell us, with the constant state of the news, what we hear about the threats to children's lives, do you think it's necessary for parents in this day and age to keep a constant surveillance on their children?
It's a very fine line. If you don't keep surveillance, you wouldn't know what's happening with them. And yet, children are very private these days. You know, they very much understand their right to privacy as they become adolescents. So how do you manage to walk this? And this is something that we keep telling the parents whom we work with. How do you keep a fine balance of communication flowing between you and your child? So I would think that the most important parenting skill is about building trust. How do we build trust with our children that they do not feel we are impinging on their privacy, we are prying on them and spying on them? As my son would say, "Ma, are you stalking me on Facebook?" And so you know, so in that it can be in fun, but the fact of the matter is that we do need to keep an eye, and yet not cross the line. And how do we do that? And if we don't do that, we wouldn't know how to ensure our children are safe, because there is the whole issue, and it's the safety was an issue always, actually. I think on an earlier show.
But isn't it increasing? Isn't it even increasing even more?
It is. In fact, what is lovely now is that children are actually talking about it. We did not. There was no space for us to talk about abuse and violence. There was a stigma. There was a culture of silence. That culture of silence is slowly breaking, and our children are helping us to break that. And we therefore must have the ear and the wherewithal to understand and help them to.
And Ms. Enakshi, hold that thought. I want to discuss that more, about children being allowed to speak up, speak their mind. But before that, I want to take this question to Mr. Veshal. Mr. Veshal, with how society has evolved, do you think children are being given a more weightage, being considered as equal human beings? Their needs are being seen as those of an adults. What do you think is changing in the parenting realm?
I don't think it's rocket science. It used to be rocket science, but science has now made it pretty simple. I think parenting style should depend on the child's learning style. So, for example, if a child is an auditory learner, and if you insist that the child reads or does otherwise, you are never going to be able to communicate. To establish a correct communication, you are going to have to alter your parenting style. Just because you're an authoritarian parent, it should not be used on the child, because child may not be able to adapt it. That's why he's a child. He's a child, and that's why you're going to have to re-engineer it. So answering your question, all the affluent, educated people make a lot of informed decisions nowadays. There are lots of tests. There's brain mapping. There is, Dr. Gardner's tests, and there's all kinds of things where influential parents and affluent want to make informed decisions. They want to do parenting based on the child's abilities and help him maximize their potentials, as opposed to, I want my child to do this. So that kind of parenting style is not right.
Yeah, so Mr. Veshal, something that you mentioned here that stuck out to me was that science has made it simple. So do you agree with the fact that parents nowadays are leaning more towards science in trying to figure out what needs to be done when it comes to the family life?
It only helps you make an informed decision. See, there's two ways you can make a decision. One is monkey see, monkey do. You look at people around, or your family or your friends, and you do that. Or you say, I'm going to depend on science. I mean, there is no third option, So people, it's just like olden days when there was Ayurvedic, and today there is allopathy. So people are leaning more towards allopathy because it helps them make correct decisions. So I think parenting is leaning towards making informed decisions. First, identifying what the child is all about. I mean, if the child has it in it, then that's it. Let's go after it. So I have experienced a lot of parents wanting to know about their child's innate abilities. It's called innate strengths.
Yeah.
I mean, no child is born intelligent. Every child is born intellectual. So you find out what their intellect is, and then based on that, you provide them information that makes them intelligent. And that's what I agree with.
And that's a great point. I'm going to pull Ms. Wajiha back into the conversation as well. There is this conception that certain children are just born smart and others might not be as bright. You as a teacher, what do you feel about that? And especially when we're talking about children at a very, very young age.
I, as a teacher, think that I know actually that every child has a capability of exceeding in one thing or the other, but it's not going to be same for everyone. One child can be good in math, one child can be good in arts, one child can be good in languages. So they can exceed in any of these things. But if we prefer that being parents, we want them to be overall good, like a straight A's, that is the thing that comes, those kind of kids are very few.
Yeah.
They can, these things can be developed over the time, but every child has different potential and different capabilities, which they can do, which we can, as a teacher and a mother, we can hone and we can make them shine into that.
It's about picking out the quality that can highlight these children's strengths.
Yes, exactly. Like my daughter, I'll give you the example of my daughter. She's 5.5, and she's a girl. She is really good in numbers. She's really good in all those activities, like she loves to wall climb, she loves to do parkour, but she doesn't like to play with dolls. She doesn't like to play kitchen. But I really do not want to force myself on her that, no, you're a girl, you're going to do this only. You can't do this. My little one, she's 3, she just turned 3, she's good with languages.
Yeah.
She learns Arabic in school and she comes home and she's talking to me in Arabic. She started talking in full sentences. So I simply cannot say that each formula can fit on both of my girls.
And Ms. Wajiha, what you cited here was gendered roles and how those are imposed upon children and how you have resisted doing that. And that's something I do want to touch upon. But before that, I want to ask Ms. Ayesha here that something that Ms. Wajiha also highlighted was that no child can be good at everything.
Absolutely.
But we definitely see that before, perhaps there were more organic lifestyles, if that's the word to use, where children were allowed to do whatever they want. But now life has become much more compartmentalized. You must tick all the boxes. So what do you think is more healthy for a child, and in terms of productivity and mental health?
I totally agree with your point that previously in if we go back to the one decade, if you just go back one decade, we will see that we didn't have much things to do. We just had to go to the school in the morning, come back, play in the ground and go to sleep at night. That was the maximum activities. But now we see that there are a lot of distractions available to the kid. They have sports complexes around in every society. They have a lot of options that they can spend their time and activities that they can do. Asking about whether we should be doing, the children should be indulging into these activities, I would definitely suggest yes. Why? Because we have to go with the time. We have to be updated. What are the new inventions that are being there for the kids? It stimulates the child's development. It stimulates their thinking style. They are more mature than we were as we were of their age. What I feel is there should be a balance in all the domains of life. Kids should be exposed to good form of education. They should be exposed to the technology development. They should be exposed to the different sports activities there. I think there should be a balance in every way. And I think absolutely rightly said and discussed before that every child has their own strengths and weaknesses. And looking at their individual personality, looking at their individual competencies, we need to alter our parenting. Since I'm a mother of twins, and I see that my parenting is totally different for my daughter and for my son, looking at
So let me ask you that's a very interesting fact that you're a mother of twins. Now, both the same age, one is a daughter and
one is a son.
One is a son.
Yeah.
So being twins, everyone assumes that they will perhaps be exactly the same. Is that something you feel?
No, absolutely not. My kids are dizygotic twins. They're not even identical. Even in identical twins, you need to adopt different form of parenting styles because they have different preferences. And since they are just dizygotic twins are not less than an ordinary sibling, so definitely my parenting style, my husband's parenting style is different according to their needs.
Yeah.
My daughter, she's very good in drawing, she's very good in science. So I reinforce her accordingly, and my son is very good in computers. He's very good with mobile phones and other things. So these are some of the things that we need to consider. While we are into parenting.
Definitely. Ms. Enakshi, here I want to ask you, do you feel like parents are becoming more aware of what their children's rights are? And do you think society at large is moving towards the consensus that it is important to consider that children as individuals have rights?
Yes and no. There are parents who are becoming more aware, and therefore they are using their, they're looking at the individuality of each child and making individual preferences and choices. But given how competitive the world has become, we also find that children are under tremendous pressure to fulfill the aspirations of their parents. And that is why we see high levels of suicide, very high levels of depression, high levels of mental health illnesses which were not there before. Yeah. And that is to do with the very high pressured lives that children today seem to be living, and which is also to a large extent mirroring the aspirations of their parents, and of course the aspirations and of also the peer pressure that they have, that is generated by the circumstances that they're growing up in. So in many ways life was simpler before, as children would play a lot more. They were free to do a lot more things.
And actually,
many more helicopter mothers these days.
Yeah,
fathers these days.
Let me ask you this: do you think life has become more complicated because of what we were discussing? That science is now playing such a large role in how children are being raised. Is that why parenting has also become more complicated before?
In fact, I'm very confused, because if algorithms and science could define human behavior at every point, we would not have any problems. Yeah. The fact is, I think parenting is learning and learning every day. Parenting is a project in the making every day. And despite all science that you may have, you still learn on the job. And you only learn when you are a parent and when you're faced with a situation. Yeah. So,
and Ms. Enakshi, how do you feel like
And it could be monkey. It could be monkey learns monkey, as Veshal said, but it also could be just experimentation. Because if you are, I've noticed with my own children too, if you are liberal, then you're too liberal. If you're not liberal, then you're rigid. So where do you draw the line between liberal and rigid? And often parents are trying to do what they did not get in their own life. They try to make up with their children. And it's not out of an ill intention. But then in doing so, sometimes they are not able to fulfill the aspirations of their own children. Yeah. So, as I said, love, trust, conversations, communications, and that is
Enakshi,
the essential ingredients.
Take your point there, how those are all important factors to consider. But something I'd also like your take on is how the traditional means, and this goes from society to society as well, how they have evolved and changed. Now, when we're talking about parenting, it often seems that parents are more inclined towards, for instance, medication. Previously, we would hear more about home remedies. Do you think in that regard as well, there is a very noticeable shift in trends and thinking?
If they were not giving medicines earlier, it was love. If they're giving over medication now, it is love. So the ingredient of love as part of parenting remains. It is the means that determine what you can give to your child. Yeah. The poor parent tried to be as good a parent as a rich parent is.
Definitely.
So it is, as Veshal pointed out, so therefore sometimes what you bring to your child, the services and the amenities that you bring to your child will differ. But as far as parenting styles goes, what you bring in terms of a parent to the child, the relationship remains the same, and has to be determined by the child and child's needs.
Definitely, that's a very important.
You may not be able to fulfill every physical or need of a child, of a.
Yes, Ms. Enakshi, hold on to that thought. I'm going to also talk to Mr. Veshal here about how it has changed and evolved parenting as we're talking about it. Something that was mentioned before was in terms of gendered roles being imposed on their children. Do you see that now society is becoming more open to the idea of letting children develop into their own person?
Absolutely. Every parent wants that, actually. Somewhere every parent has realized, even may it be my cook's child, that, my child wants to do this. Parents have started using this word a lot more. Even my watchman would say, Meri bachchi ye chahti hai. Like every parent and every human being, or for that matter, parent, has accepted that. Now it's up to their ability and their resources, what they can provide. So in the case where they cannot provide, they allow the child to go and fetch it for themselves, because they don't have it in them to provide that. It's beyond their understanding, or their money matters for that matter. So that's when they let the child loose. And then what happens, even they don't know, but that's where it is.
Yeah. And
but one thing I do want to say, if you don't mind, is just rewinding to what you were talking, is why parents are using more technology, science, or medication nowadays is because that is the need of the hour. 10 years ago, if you filled your gas 5 gallons, that's because you wanted to go only that distance. But today, every parent wants to excel. So they want to give their child everything.
What is the best?
So even if they want to go 5 miles, they still want to fill the full tank. They don't want 5 gallons. They want full tank of gas, although they are going 5 miles. So that's where it stands.
And Ms. Ayesha, as a psychologist, what would the advice you would give to especially young parents who are confused when it comes to dealing with this? How would you put their mind to ease? And also, what advice would you give them in terms of ensuring that their child's mental health is always in a stable place?
Yes, I believe that's one of the most important questions. Many young parents, they refer to a lot of books about the parenting tips that are available in the market. And a lot of questions that are being asked. Even I, being a parent, I learn new things every day. And I do discuss what is the right form of parenting that I should be adopting for my kids. Honestly, there is no general rule. But yes, there are a few things that we should be keeping in our mind, as being discussed previously by our guest. Being there for the kid, being present for the and communication is the most important ingredient, I would say. And then building a level of trust is another important thing that I would say. I had a conversation with a very important person who has a lot of work in education, especially at school level. And I asked her, once I met her in a conference, and I asked her, okay, what do you think is the most important thing for a good parenting? And you know what she said? She said, it's just only one word. And you know what that word was? Being consistent. No matter what your parenting style is, just stay consistent to whatever there is. There was a thing that I actually wanted to talk about, and I lost track of it. And I wanted to say that there are different forms of parenting. As I mentioned, there is authoritarian form, then there is a permissive, there's neglectful.
We're running short on time.
So I'm just coming back. Okay.
Yeah, so I'm going to finish the show with asking Ms. Wajiha here something that you have dealt with so many different types of children. What would you say, give advice to parents in terms of trying to identify what their children's talents are, where their strengths lie, what needs to be done in that regard?
What I think is that parents need to take their children as human beings. They have their own needs. Every child has their own needs, and every child has their own talents. So for being a parent, you need to be on the lookout what their children are good in. Let them grow, let them give them space to flourish, and give them time to do that. Not every child do the same thing in the same time frame.
Right.
You have to be very flexible with that.
Yeah.
If somebody's child is getting straight A's, don't expect your child to get the same
Thank you
grade.
so much, Ms. Wajiha Faraz, for joining us and taking the time to talk to us. Thank you so much, Ms. Ayesha Sheraz, for joining us. Thank you, Mr. Veshal Shah. Thank you, Enakshi Ganguly, for joining us. Thank you so much for watching Indus Special. We will see you again tomorrow with more stories. Till then, take care and goodbye.